Good morning. Nice of you guys to drop by.
What a piece of junk. What are you talking about?
Don't be too proud of this technological terror you've constructed.
Look, don't worry. Everything's gonna be fine. Trust me.
I don't know what all this trouble is about, but I'm sure it must be your fault. Don't get technical with me.
This bickering is pointless.
Don't everybody thank me at once.
I don't know where you get your delusions, laser brain.
I'm glad you're here to tell us these things.
How could you even say that?
I got a bad feeling about this.
Well, come on. Everything's perfectly all right now. We're fine. We're all fine here now. Thank you. How are you?
Would you get going, you pirate?
Get in there, you big furry-o! I don't care what you smell!
I'm getting too old for this sort of thing.
If what you've told me is true, you will have gained my trust. I like the sound of that.
Get a shuttle ready.
I don't know. Fly casual.
Shuttle Tydirium, what is your cargo and destination?
Transmission commencing.
Hey everybody, thanks again for tuning into the Shuttle Tydirium Podcast. I am your host and pilot, Jim Chadwick, also known as Hey Chadwick on the forums. I do have sitting with me here, Phil Mead. Phil, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. Please bear with the new Ewok cabin crew. They're all very, very fresh recruits because we recently had to purge the entire crew. But more on that from J-Bot.
And J-Bot, our cranky protocol droid. How you doing, J-Bot?
No, I'm not doing too bad. It's been a long day of recruiting, interviews, that sort of thing. So, the type thing that happens when there's, what do they call that when employees take things from the store?
Pilfering?
Well, pilfering's probably the better way to put it. But they've been taking supplies, and they shouldn't be doing that. That's so we had to get rid of them in the only way that we know how. So if you're flying through the system, beware of a couple of new debris clouds that might be in the area. Might be a few new debris clouds in the area. So
I thought you were just giving them a pink slip. I didn't know.
Oh, pink slip's the name of the crate that we put them in before we dump them out the back. It's kind of an inside thing, so don't broadcast that too loudly.
Don't let the new crew hear that.
Yeah, it gives them give the new meaning to the word. Give them the slip.
I forgot to actually. I thought I was going to say our new tagline, our new byline. So, welcome to the Shuttle Tydirium Podcast, where we make mistakes so you don't have to.
Maybe we should say more like where Chadwick and J-Bot make mistakes, so you don't have to.
So yeah, that's more a reference to all the times that we get things wrong when we play missions and such, so that we're here for you guys to help make these common, easy mistakes, so that when you play, you won't run into the same issues.
Yeah, hasn't that been our mission statement all along?
Yes.
Yes. I'm pretty sure it has been.
Maybe we should. I just wanted to reiterate it or put more focus back on our mission statement. So, just for you fans out there, when you shake your heads at us, that's what we're doing. We're here for you.
Right.
Now, speaking of mistakes and things like that, this is actually our second attempt at doing this particular episode. Phil, we want to fill people in why?
Yeah. So here's exactly what happened. We recorded the episode, and it was actually a pretty good one about the C-ROC cruiser, and everything was fine. The recording went great, and we handed it off to one of our Ewok cabin crew for data processing, and that Ewok in particular decided that it would be a good idea to corrupt that data file. And I won't say exactly how he did it. It's not it's not fit for radio.
I think he was a rebel insurgent, is my personal opinion.
Yeah, it's easily possible that he was. So it's probably a good thing.
Did he reveal anything to you in his
exit interview?
Out processing.
In the exit interview, no.
Offboarding.
Yeah, I don't recall, but don't worry. He did get his pink slip, and We found a replacement, so hopefully the new replacement is better than the old one.
I sure hope so.
Yeah, and we're
now
instituting new measures to prevent that from happening again.
Yes, and to compound the delay in getting this particular one out, we have actually had a new schedule change for our flight to Endor. So we have actually not been able to record as we're gearing up and changing our own personal schedule, sleep cycles, all the circadian rhythm, all that stuff to get ready for our new Sunday morning recording. So we're actually, instead of saying good evening, it's more good morning. We've had our Java, our coffee, and our calf. And we will release our episodes on a different day because we used to release on Tuesdays. And if we record on Sunday morning, that does not give Jake and Phil a lot of time to really do the necessary work to bring you the high level of quality that you have come to expect from us. So, yes, we also know that Phil is really loud. His mic is. We try to work on that.
Or really soft, depending on the episode.
He's like the Iron Gauntlet in the Velvet.
He's just leaning towards the mic and away from the mic as he's flipping buttons and things in the cockpit. That's really probably the best way to put that.
Right. So I do apologize. It has actually taken a bit longer for you to actually hear this episode, but blame the Ewok. That's also our third byline here at the Shuttle Tydirium Podcast. Blame the Ewoks. All right. So I do have a captain's question. When we recorded last time, I had actually gone and the Charlotte Orchestra did Star Wars music, a whole night of Star Wars music, and they had like R2-D2 and Darth Vader and all these people out there, on stage and stuff. It was actually pretty cool, and I have to say, it was really nice to hear, like the Star Wars theme song. I don't even know if I've actually heard the whole thing from start to finish uninterrupted by, say, a movie or something. And it was actually really cool to hear like the whole thing by a full orchestra, just blaring at me. And it was really, really neat. And the captain's question dealt with, what is your favorite Star Wars song? So, Phil, I think we can go ahead and start with you.
Okay, so I've got a interesting pick here. I like the Yoda's theme. So this is the one that goes do 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 do. When Luke is hanging out with Yoda. It's a funny little piece of music, and it also works well if you're like laying it over some like goofy stuff that's happening. Like, it's one that I often use for making my little intro music segments for different show segments.
Yeah, actually they played it that night and it was pretty interesting to hear. I do agree. Excellent. And what about you, J-Bot?
Well, like always, I tended to go off the beaten path with mine, and being a fan of the old Republic games, I fell in love with kind of the intro music and really the whole soundtrack to the Star Wars Online game. And I know it's not quote-unquote canon. It's officially legend, I guess, at this point. But it does what a lot of kind of ancillary Star Wars games and things do, which is it takes kind of the theme or the feel of the original Star Wars movie or music and adjusts it. It in the case of this one, it adds a lot more, I don't know, trumpet, horn a little bit than you would hear in the original ones, but it's still orchestral, if that makes sense. And it also has kind of that vocal overlay to it in certain parts, not actual words, more just, loud humming, I think is probably the best way to put it. I'm not a singer, so I'm not sure how that's done. My best musical ability is a kazoo. That's about as much as I'm able to actually do. So, and I don't think this song features any kazoo, so I don't know that I'd be able to actually sing or hum or any of it for you. But it's very complex, and it unlike, at least, and I haven't heard all the songs, like as Jim mentioned, you rarely hear the whole song in the movie because you're kind of either focusing on people talking or that sort of thing.
Or the scene doesn't go that long. They only play a certain segment.
Right, which is always interesting if you ever get the soundtracks, or I should say the score. It's really more the score often than it is the soundtracks to a lot of movies. How much of the song you actually missed. So I can't say if this is true or not for all of Star Wars songs, but the intro is, I don't know, 4 or 5 minutes long, and it goes from this kind of obviously epic feel of an intro, and then it kind of softens up towards the end of it. So I know that when I first started playing the game, it kind of gave me chills. I was like, wow, this is like Star Wars, but it's not. Like it's you can definitely tell, at least I could, that it's connected to it in a lot of ways, but not the original song.
And that was all way before lots of like covers and remakes, and people have done things with Star Wars music. Because nowadays there's from Mars and all sorts of people that have redone, Star Wars music. And then back when that game came out, it was
and I was actually very happy when it came out, when Star Wars Online came out, that they didn't do that. That they didn't just make a heavy metal version of the Imperial March or that sort of thing as their theme. That they actually said, you know what, we're going to go and create our own music that is the music for this game, but we're going to use cues from the original as kind of a guideline, not just us, in a sense, playing it in a different key. So I was happy with that, and like I said, it gives me chills. And there are a lot of songs in the original Star Wars trilogy that I love, and I'm always humming the Imperial March as I'm wandering around my office, but it's hard for me to not love that song when it starts, when I hear it in the background. So.
Yeah, and it's funny that one of the things I was noticing about all the different stuff that I liked, because one of the songs that they played that night that was one of my favorite was called Asteroid Field, and it was just the background music for when they were flying around in Empire Strikes Back. But my daughter, who's into music and such, was saying, well, I like the full songs. I don't like the vignettes so much. I'm like, vignette? What's this? And she said, the vignette, that's the music they play like as the background to when other things are happening, et cetera, et cetera. And I like the full epic songs, et cetera, for the characters. And because what I found out was a space opera means to make it a space opera is each character has a theme song that is played when they show up, or each planet has a theme song. And I never even realized that before, but yes, Star Wars is totally a space opera because each particular character has a theme song.
I didn't know that. Is that what that official kind of breakdown is?
That's officially what a space opera is, which I did not know, which was pretty cool. But I find I like more the vignettes. And my particular pick is called TIE Fighter Attack. And actually, I use it as a ringtone when it's not on vibrate, because I like it's when they escape the Death Star in Episode 4, and the TIE fighters are attacking them. And don't get cocky, kid. But it's dun 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 dun.
I got one.
Yeah, don't get cocky, kid. Because I like it with my phone. It's like, TIE Fighter Attack, get to it, quick, man your station.
I'm sorry, when you did that, I'm cackling to myself. Y'all saw that video of the dog they did with that had the TIE fighters over top of it? It was like a dog. I don't know if it was barking or just howling at like being fed. Have y'all seen that video?
No.
Oh, somebody posted it to the Facebook page, and it's every time the dog, it makes that sound, that sort of sound, and they cut to like the TIE fighter swooping around, and it's so freaking hilarious. And but somebody posted on Facebook page. It's probably been a couple weeks now, but whenever Jim starts doing that, I can only think of that now. Anytime somebody makes that sound, I think it's ruined me to start that dog making like the exact sound. Yeah.
Yeah, one more thing about the Facebook group. I mean, and every time we mention it so much, we tend to get a little flurry of new people on the Facebook page. But
we don't really talk about it that much. Well, we just have little blurbs. We don't encourage people to join as much as we probably should.
For you guys, I don't care, but I have fun with it. Yeah. So that's the captain's question. What's your favorite Star Wars song? All right. Our main topic today, though, is going to be about the latest article, which Shirley's been. I haven't heard another podcast talk about it before us, which just a little disappointing.
They have. Yeah, we might have been first if we had got our recording out on time, but I think other people have talked about it.
Yeah. Oh, I do want to give a shout out to Cloud City Radio in the UK. They were talking about our podcast on their last episode. which I thought was hysterical. Those are the guys, J-Bot, that they want. I will say that one of their main members has gotten burnt out on tournament play. He's done a lot of tournament play lately for the past year. He's done very well. He's been all involved in all the regional stuff, and he's burnt out. He's like, you know what? It's just not quite as much fun anymore. I want to do a bunch of fun stuff. And he mentioned our podcast, and he was the one who said that he wants to record you, or he wants to send you text that you will record the intro to their missions because they love your intro so much.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, I did one secretly for the group. I guess y'all listen to that one, but that might get played eventually if we ever make it to that mission. I don't even remember which one it was. I just picked one randomly. So that might be fun if people are interested. That might be fun. We'll see. Sometimes I can't tell that they sound good, so everybody has to tell me yes or no. So I can't really record it secretly and listen to it myself and think it sounds good. So that's the problem.
But I was talking to them about because you know how we're doing our Gen Con event, and Phil's putting a lot of effort into writing some scenarios, and J-Bot, you and I and Biff and some other people need to start doing some play testing, and I was already even just theory crafting and trying to find a few holes and tweaking it to kind of make it better for our Gen Con event, which we're really excited about. But we realize there's only 40 people, who are going to be able to make that event, and you have to be living around, or getting close enough to go to Gen Con to actually participate. And if we spend too much time and effort, we want to talk about it, it's not really going to be as exciting for everybody. And so, I kind of came up with the idea of having after we do Gen Con, spending like a month where we post the whole campaign, the whole narrative event for people to download and play and have like a global campaign. I remember the days when Games Workshop used to have, every summer a global campaign that went for so many weeks, and you would play games, report them in, etc. And we could actually do that since that way we can actually talk about these various missions and stuff, and it won't bore everybody because they'll actually be able to play them and use the rules, whether it's they host a one-day event at their local game store, or whether it's two guys in their garage that want to play a mission every week or so and report in. But we could actually run this. And the Cloud City Radio, they said that sounded really cool and they'd be totally on board. Made me think that we could reach out to a bunch of people all over and try to get some, just a little bit of hype about it, and maybe have a whole bunch of different.
A lot of people on board for that.
And other podcasts talking about it would be really cool too. Just to
definitely. I mean, we have to get the word out for a Gen Con event. We have to make sure that we fill that baby up.
Yeah. So
there's a lot. How many spots do y'all have? Do y'all know?
There's spots for 40 people.
40 people. Goodness. All right.
My only concern is I really want to play in it, but I think I'm going to be needed to help GM it. So
I've given up on that. I'm not going to be able to play.
You're not going to play this at all. I don't think.
The thing is that we will probably both have played all these missions like 2 or 3 times each anyway.
True.
From play testing.
Yeah.
But it won't. The thing is that it won't. It's going to be significantly more awesome to play these at the event, because we're going to have prizes. We're going to have all sorts of support going on during the event. I'm going to be on hand to answer questions.
We're making tokens and everything. We have like a fan who's local who's actually helping us make some of the tokens, and Jake is actually making graphics for some of the stuff. And we're trying to also get prize support we're actually getting prize support from Litco and stuff. And
Combat Zone Scenery.
Oh yeah, Combat Zone Scenery is going to give us some massive stuff.
I think they've actually now committed to giving us a good amount of prize support. So I think we're definitely going to have their asteroid.
Sure we can't play in this, because some of the stuff is really cool.
First of all, none of us can win prizes from this. I hope you guys know that.
Wait.
That's not going to be. That's not possible.
Employees and
I don't care if you ace this event. You just kill everything. You're not getting the asteroid base.
That's no fun.
Yeah. That's really cool.
But we're going to have the asteroid base. We're going to have asteroids. I think we're going to have a lot more other stuff. I want to get the confirmation on that and look at the list, but it's going to be a well-supported event, I think.
Yeah, it definitely sounds cool, and I don't really know much about it other than just seeing all the stuff go back and forth about people talking, oh my God, and seeing the stuff Biff, I guess, is painting and working on. So that'll be interesting to kind of see how that all works out. And then I think mine's on another day. I'm running the Mario Kart extravaganza. So that'll be an interesting turn of events. But that's a smaller, I think, was it 4, 8, maybe 24 people total is in that one. So that'll be a different sort of tournament. Many hate to call it tournament. That's why I'm calling it an extravaganza. So think Saturday night. Think Saturday night racing at your local dirt track is kind of the idea of this. Is so that'll be fun. I'm working slowly on my own prize support, which I don't think I'll have any fancy connection to stuff. It'll be more silly things, but it should be fun.
The golden J-Bot, the golden droid award.
I can't tell. I can't. No secrets on the trophy, but there will be a trophy. That was part of my write-up, is that the person that wins the open class is going to get a J-Bot Slayer of Ewoks trophy. So I'm working on that one slowly. So
now I hope whoever wins it doesn't have to fly home with it, because if it's a giant trophy, I'm gonna fit that on the plane.
That would be awesome. Yeah, one of those like 8-foot tall trophies, like they won a kung fu event or something. So
yeah.
Hope you want to. Oh, you don't want to take it home? That's fine. I'll take it back. Take it back in my Jeep. That'll be good.
All right. So we also have someone we want to give a shout out to. One of our local guys, Jason, also known as Tide Punisher Jason. He went to a local epic tournament, like a 2-person epic tournament, at our local store. And how'd he do, J-Bot?
He and I believe Doc was the person he was with. Yeah. Actually won that tournament. So basically, Jason has now been excommunicated from our local casual team. He is official tournament winner.
Wait. So, it was like a team pairs tournament. It's not like there's 2 people in the tournament and he won.
Yeah,
significantly less impressive.
That is what it sounded like. It's about the only chance I'd have of winning a game there, short of my opponent like getting sick and leaving halfway through. But no, I don't remember exactly how many teams there were. Maybe 6 or 7 or 8. But there were 2-person teams,
and it was filled with all the tournament regulars, and it was the event done by Blake, Mr. X-Wing himself.
Yep. And so they had, I think the Sling Paint guys might have actually live fed some of it or recorded some of it for their channel. But the
price support.
Yeah, they might have been price support too. So they
they did with those tokens.
Did just a regular tournament format is the way I understood it, and the only requirements were you had to be a 2-person team, so it couldn't be one person doing everything. I think that was probably for speed more than it was for just the general feel of the tournament. But you also had to have 130 points of huge ships. So if you could get 130 points on one huge epic ship, and then you'd have 170 on everything else, that would be fine. But I do know from talking with Jason that they had a few that split them up. So they had like 2 or 3 ships apiece. So I thought that was interesting. And they won it. I don't know how close it was, but they had a build very similar to, I think, what Jim and I would have gone with if we had
right
actually sat down and put it together, which was basically a raider with I keep calling them torpedo tubes, ordnance tubes, and then bombers, I believe is what they're back.
Lots of TIE bombers.
Yeah, lots of bombers. So tons of ordnance.
So if we had played, we would have won, but we don't do that.
Yeah. They were surprised that we didn't show up. I'd said, there's a chance. It was really early when they started, and I just didn't feel like getting up that early and going, and because I assumed they needed all day, and really it wouldn't have been fair. I think Jim and I have more epic experience over the last few months than all of those people combined.
And Jason has been playing with us on a bunch of things, and so he was playing with our TIE Punisher with Gozanti mission. So he knows epic, and he's played some of the other epic games we've been doing. He knows what he's doing. So
yeah, the thing that's funny is we talked to him for a little while, and actually played against another guy who wanted some kind of testing before the tournament. He wanted some dry runs to get used to flying an epic ship. And I thought it was funny because even though I lost almost all of the Tantive missions. By the end of it, I'd actually gotten really good at maneuvering that Tantif around.
Nice.
As scary as it sounds, it's if you actually were able to go back and look at like that last kind of run mission where you're trying to run all the way up the table. It was pretty shifty. I mean, I don't know whether Jim's willing to admit it or not, but it's like when I'm skirting, going from the middle of the table, skirting all the way to, within about half an inch of the table edge and skirting around asteroids with a big ship. I was like, man, I've got this thing under control. But too bad the ship sucks, or at least the way they built it sucks. But
I think the way they built the mission and the way they built that particular ship and all that. And I don't think that, you were a bad player. So I think you like to consider yourself a bad player, but I don't consider you a bad player.
Absolutely. I know I'm a bad player, but you guys are willing to say otherwise. It's okay. I'll take that. But no, it was fun. It was nice to see the local group kind of embracing that a little bit. And it does sound like most people had fun. So hopefully they'll see more of that here in the future.
Yeah. Yeah. Though the prize support from Sling Paint they do these token lock tokens, these various tokens are about like an inch big. They had these target locks that were like 3 inches big.
Oh my god!
Like these giant target locks. I walked in the game night and saw J-Bot playing Jason, and there's these target locks, these huge freaking target locks next to his ships.
Yeah, they're like campaign buttons. Now that we're out of the political season, they're like those giant campaign buttons, which are almost like a shield that those guys wear. So they had those in big target locks. So now Jason has those for his Punisher. So he was showing those off on me at the game store this week.
His big bomber with his big target locks. So, though unfortunately we can't play with Jason anymore because he's not casual enough.
Yeah. Although I did beat a tournament player. I beat him that night with my crazy little B list. So I feel empowered. Like I beat a tournament winner. Yeah.
Oh, and who is it on the Facebook page that's been taking one of our B lists and winning a lot? And he was going to take it to one of his local tournaments. I should give him a shout out. But I thought that was pretty cool.
I think that's Jared Miller. He posted on Facebook not too long ago. He said he went to a first ever regionals and he went 3-3 with what anyone else would consider a B team, and he had a Shuttle Tydirium shirt, and people thought he was you, Jim.
Really? That's awesome. I missed that part. Oh, that's hysterical.
Well, it's good. That's pretty funny, but it's a good thing you didn't win, because if you won, we'd have had to kick him out of the group, because we just can't have people lording their accolades over us the entire time. The rest of us horrible players.
Sometimes things come in fast and furious, and I miss some things in the Facebook page. I always love to read everything, but that would have been awesome. I gotta go find that. That's hysterical. That's too funny. I love it. Very cool. All right. So, do we want to get into the main topic?
Yeah, let's do it.
I really wish we should get some sort of news segment in the front. Or like a little. Now on the news, so maybe some like Imperial News Network. We are not propaganda.
The little breaking news.
Yeah, and it makes me think like Fox News with their byline "fair and balanced."
Fair and balanced.
Where if you have to maybe actually say you're fair and balanced, maybe you're not fair and balanced. But because they get Imperial News Network, we're not propaganda. Hey, look, they're not propaganda. They say so.
All the truth that's fit to broadcast. I don't know. Fit to transmit.
Exactly. So we got some sort of Imperial News Network.
Yeah, as long as you have like sponsored by the local Imperial Legion 457.
Yeah, awesome. So we have, as everybody knows by now, a new news segment: bargains, bribes, and battles. Scum goes epic with the C-ROC Cruiser Expansion Pack for X-Wing. TM. There's a quote. "You owe me, remember? I gave you information, and it saved your Jedi friend. I'm calling in that favor." And that was from
Star Wars Rebels, right? Yeah.
Is that what that was from?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's from Rebels.
This ship is in Star Wars Rebels. With a ship title called the Broken Horn, which is actually not one of the ship titles that you get to hear about. So we can claim we know what at least one of those titles is going to be.
Yeah, I'm sure it's going to be one of those.
But J-Bot, do you want to go over what the C-ROC cruiser stats are? I wish Jake was here to tell us.
Yeah, I can start with that.
Let you guys know, Jake is having to work on the the bathrooms. Apparently, the new Ewok cabin crew and the fur, they don't quite understand the toilet system yet, and he's got to unclog it. It's kind of ugly, and
they thought the sink was a bathtub.
And the hair got within the filtration system. That's
right.
Really bad.
It's real big. It's a mess.
Like hair in space, it's not a good thing. There's so many hairy races, but it's a really bad idea. Anyways, all right. J-Bot, do you want to go over the stats?
Yeah, I'm not sure how Jake officially does this, but I'll try and wing it. C-ROC, unless there's something out there that I'm not seeing, is pilot skill 1 ship. Obviously, it's an epic or a huge style ship. Costs 35 points and has a 4 energy bank. I guess is kind of the best way to describe that. No agility, obviously. 10 hull and 4 shield. It comes with, and I'm not going to know the official names of these things, the shield regen ability, the reinforce, a target lock, and I think the other one's like it gives a stress. I can't jam what that one is. Yeah, I know you can pick a ship and give it up to 2 stress or something like that.
Right, which you could say just give it 2 stress, but if it already has 1 stress, it only gains 1 more.
Right, yeah, you give it up to 2 essentially. I guess it maxes the ship out at 2. It has a ton of upgrade slots. So it is 2 regular crew, 1 team, a hard point, so just 1 hard point, and then 3 cargo slots. So it's got some interesting availability for some shenanigans for just all the different types. So it's like I believe they said it was a Gazanti base, is what it was at one point. So I guess
the company,
unlike the Gazanti, it can have a hard point, or can the Gazanti have a hard point?
The Gazanti can have a hard point. The only one that can't is the GR75. This one, the company used the basis of the Gazanti. You can kind of see it with the front shell, but then they added some rear component where you've got some cargo pods and then the engines in the far back. And so that is the overall, like the Gazanti was the basis. But
yeah, I really like the look of this ship. I really, really do.
It looks like a spaceship.
Much better than the Gazanti. I really like the look of this.
And Phil, is it 1 or 2 segments for this ship?
So it has 2 sections, but only has 1 card. So it does have a fore and an aft section. Much like a Gazanti or a GR75 transport does, but it's only 1 card. So it's got total, 10 hull, 4 shields, not 1 section each with its own stats.
Right. So this is the small.
It's like the small variant. Yeah.
The small. So and J-Bot, how much is this one worth?
These are 35 points.
So 35 points. So basically, cheap. if you went to the Epic tournament, that my local area was doing, you would need 3 of these to fill out your Epic points limits. Well, unless you went really, really, really expensive. I don't know if you can even still quite.
Do they have like a minimum cost for your Epic ship requirement?
Yeah. You just have to have at least 130 points in huge ships. So if you had a cheap Tantif and like a transport thrown out there, I think just playing around with this, you might be able. You'd have to take the most expensive crew and that sort of thing. But I think you could get in with 2. It would be really, really tough, but I think you could get in with 2 if you spent as much as possible on everything.
Yeah, you put like 3 slicer tools in the cargo.
Load up every cargo slot. Yeah.
Well, you take gunner. You put gunner on there, so that's some expensive.
Yeah, hotshot co-pilot or something, which would be terrible at PS1.
Right. So it could be done. I just don't know that it would be very sound as a strategy to do that.
Yeah,
but you never know. Somebody might figure it out.
I do have one question. So some people are calling it the CROC. Now we're calling it the C-ROC. What do you guys think it should be called?
I'm probably going to stick with C-ROC, but just because I don't want to call it the CROC, that's probably the main reason.
See,
I think they set it up almost too easily to be called the CROC, and I don't know that I want to go that way.
What about you, Phil?
I kind of go between them. I kind of like the C-ROC, so you can see what the rock is cooking inside this cargo ship. But also, it's like a crock pot, so you can see what's cooking inside the crock pot.
Oh,
see what the rock is cooking in the crock.
CIs is like C-ROC, yo.
So,
it's more gangsta cred with C-ROC.
So I have a question for you. They mentioned in here in the article about I'm not going to be able to find it very quickly, about this being used for Epic. My question is, why can't you use this in a 100-point game? It's the cost of Corn Horn, like a 35. It's basically the same cost as, I know it's a pilot skill 8 versus a 1, but when I look at like the Epic game, I see ships like this that essentially have one bank of hull and shield as very weak in a 300-point list. And in the recent tournament that they had, it sounds like anybody who brought something like this, like the transports, the Gazantes, had them shot out from under them in essentially the first turn, the first pass of engagement, because they have less shield and hull than some of the large ships that actually exist in the game already. But I feel like this in a 100-point list does change it a little bit, because it does become a focal point, but because of its variability, because of the crazy things you could do with it, and still get it in there for, 45, 50, 55 points. I think that almost makes it more fair. It would be more difficult without, in a big list like that, to kind of, hammer this thing down in 1 or 2 turns, although it is still a big target. I'm just curious what you guys think about that. Like, why, obviously we could do it in our way of playing, but why would Fantasy Flight essentially lock you out of taking like this, or a transport, or a Gazanti in 100-point games if they put them at that kind of points level that would fit into a 100-point game? Obviously the bigger epics couldn't, not realistically,
right,
and have any chance of doing anything, but these, it's cheap enough that you could conceivably make an interesting build out of it that might be really good as a support ship that still has the ability to, with some of the cards that come with it, which we can discuss, to be a formidable list.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's partly a flavor decision. X-Wing was originally just a starfighter tactical combat game. I think they want to keep the scale in that area for the standard tournament play.
Yeah.
So I think that's partly part of it. It might also, there might be some balance concerns in there. I'm not really sure about that. Maybe they thought that they'd be stronger than they typically tend to be.
Yeah,
and maybe
I tend to think that they thought they were going to be stronger than they turn out to be, and I think that some of the first ones were really expensive, or at least with the CR90. That's too expensive to really put in, so they kind of just decided to make a special category for it. I don't know.
Yeah, it just makes me wonder, because when we were kind of building this ship, or at least when I was kind of building it, I looked at some of the things that are on it, like the jam ability. That could totally screw up a Palp Aces list. Oh, look, you've got, Sunterfell with all his dancing around. Not anymore. Like, I'm just going to double stress him, and good luck. From that point forward, I mean, yeah, you have to take that choice, but it's like I can use one ship to essentially, just take one of yours to the point where he can be hammered by the rest of my list. And that doesn't make this super powerful, because that, in a sense, you're taking that choice of, do I use this as an offensive, sort of thing in this little 100-point list and try and cripple one ship in your list each turn? Or do I try and play defensive and keep this alive for a long time? I'm interested in trying it, I guess, is what I'm getting at, in a 100-point list, to see what would happen.
Yeah.
It might just be too big that it just gets, eaten alive.
You couldn't turn around, too much. Yeah, I don't know. I have nothing against it, but then again, I don't really care too much about the official 106 games. So so I say, sure, throw it in.
Yeah, I mean, no strong feelings here either. I mean, I doubt that allowing epic ships in standard play would make a huge splash, I guess.
Right. I don't see it suddenly changing the meta is what I'm like. I don't see all these tournament players suddenly running out to buy one of these things because they think it's going to change everything. But I think it would be interesting that if they allowed it, I mean, if they could, to me, I don't think there should be any difference. If you can put a Raider in your list for 100 points and that's what you want to bring to a tournament, go for it. It might be laughable to any 100-point list that's out there, or most of them, but to me, as Fantasy Flight, I would think, let them do it. If we put a limit of 100 points, if we build the ships so that they can't realistically fit one into 100 points, then they're never going to do it anyway. And it, essentially, it makes its own limitation to what type of tournament you can play in it with.
I almost could see if you had like either the CR90 or the Raiders with their 2 shots and at long range and etc. And if you had some way to like strip tokens and all, you might actually like kill some aces that are all like, oh, you could actually hit Manaru who's trying to run off to the side, or you could shoot at the Emperor and kill the Emperor with like the long range shots and take out these, buffers that normally stay within a safety valve or safety zone, that you could actually take them out and kill them, which is just, that idea is hysterical. Or your, hotshot co-pilot and like, Luke or Gunner or something where you can strip Sunter Fell down and take him out, like with an ion cannon where you ended up like doing an auto crit to him, something like that. That'd be hysterical.
Yeah, and I know we haven't gone into all the details of all the ships that come with this, or all the cards that come with this, but I am a teensy bit disappointed, and I certainly understand there's 2 reasons why they didn't do this. I'm a teensy bit disappointed they didn't put a illicit slot on this thing, just because it's a scum ship. I felt like they almost all need. I know they don't all have them, but I'm like, come on. It to me, it's an iconic piece of the scum kind of faction to have illicits. But I get it. It's a big ship, and there's no telling what those illicits could actually allow.
Yeah, like what do you do for inertial dampeners? You do a
right. Well, the big ships, we've already said the big ships should be able to go 0 anyway. But
right, but then what do you do for energy in that regard? And what about cloaking? It's like, you've got to.
Well, cloaking is small ship anyway. But
right, uncloaking it is small ship only. Okay,
but I get it. There's only there's no telling really with some of that stuff what you could do, but also they don't have room on their bar for another icon. So I think that was the second piece of the limitation.
Glitter stem, what is it? You give everybody, okay, crew, here's your ration of glitter stem. Everybody,
everybody, 1, 2, 3.
It is a very giant cargo ship that might be smuggling crate after crate of glitter stem. You just never know.
It's just kind of absurd, but yeah. So how about we talk about the title? Because I think the title that we know of is kind of interesting. And it's, Phil, do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I've got it here. So its title is called Merchant 1. It increases your energy limit by 1. It's a C-ROC cruiser only. And the text reads, your upgrade bar gains 1 additional crew upgrade icon and 1 additional team upgrade icon, and loses 1 cargo upgrade icon. That's 2 points.
Right. So you convert one of the cargo spaces to more living quarters. And can I say that this was from Star Wars Rebels, the Asmogoran's ship?
As Morgan.
Excuse me, as Morgan. I can never get that name right.
It's less funny to everyone else in the universe listening to this because they didn't hear you mispronounce it like 3 times the first time we recorded this episode.
Yeah.
But I assure you, it's very funny to me.
Asmogoran. Okay. And also that +1 energy.
Asmorigan.
Asmorigan.
Let's just leave it alone, Phil. Let him have.
It's just A-Rock.
So that +1 energy I want to point out is actually something that a lot of people can overlook, but it's very important. It means that your base ship can store 1 more energy, and that that is important, right?
And you start off with that energy in normal epic games.
If you play normal epic game, you start off full energy. Play scenarios, you don't.
Right. Unless it says.
Yeah. Yeah. So what do you think of that particular title?
I think it's very interesting. Teams and crew are humongous on these big ships, just because, especially when you can have 3 crew, the types of dynamics you can do with that. And the loss of 1 cargo. And I went through a lot of the cargo, and there's some pretty interesting stuff. There's also some pretty crappy stuff in there too. So I could see easily saying, you know what, I don't want that. I'd rather have another crew and a team that can, pull some shenanigans on local other ships, either for myself or for against my opponent. So when I built, and I know we all kind of built our own, I didn't take this one into account. I just went with the kind of base ship, but I could see a lot of possibilities with this small change.
Yeah. And so with some of the cargo crew or the cargo, and a lot of even just I think crew on Epic and cargo and some of the teams are all very situational. And I think that'll come into play with the C-ROC. So I think overall there's some things that if you had the right instance, it would be very useful, but you're never going to take that. And so do we want to go over Vizago? Because he actually interacts with cargo.
Yeah, so Cigatro Vizago is a dude that shows up in Rebels, and he is a crew that comes with this ship. So he's Scum only. And his text reads, at the start of the end phase, you may discard this card to replace a face-up illicit or cargo upgrade card that you have equipped with another upgrade card of the same type of equal or fewer squad points. And he is not restricted to Epic only. So this guy can and will show up in standard play.
Right, but let's focus
0 points
on him.
Sorry, that's important for JBot.
Yes. Let's focus right now just on the Epic aspect of this. So I know we had some discussion about this before, but from just the Epic aspect of this guy, 0 points, which you don't – part of the problem with these things is getting them overloaded with stuff. And you have so many slots. You can make them so expensive. And you like, I want to make this thing so cool. You load it down, and then suddenly it gets concentrated fire and blown to bits, and you've lost a whole lot of points. So with 0 points, that is really good. But in Epic, it really only comes down to the cargo slot.
Right.
And as I said before, a lot of the cargo things are very situational. If you find yourself like in a matchup where, you know what, this thing is not really going to, your cargo is not really going to work out for you, boom, you sacrifice a 0 point guy that on a Epic ship has no other use other than switching your cargo out.
And you can do it during the game. So you could, maybe use your cargo for something, and then switch it out for something that you'll need the next turn. And you can switch it back you can't switch it back and forth with Cigatro, but you can switch it out.
Right, because there's different things, and there's all different points values, and starting with something higher, like Slicer Tool. Action, choose one or more ships at range 1 to 3 that have a stress token. Spend an energy, and that ship suffers a damage. That could be used to kill off aces or particular ships. That's the most expensive one. You can start with that, then start downgrading. Let's say then your shields are low or you're really low in energy. Swap it out for Tabana gas, and pop that puppy, and suddenly you can replenish your shields, or use it on a repair droid to repair a whole bunch of critical damage.
Right. Or you could charge up an ionization reactor with a bunch of energy at the start of the game. And then, because ionization reactor is a card that is sort of difficult to use, especially more than once. So it's a 5 energy capacity card, costs 4 points. It's a cargo. And it reads energy, spend 5 energy from this card, and discard this card. Oh, discard this card to cause each other ship at range 1 to suffer. So you can't use that with this. That does not work. You have to discard it.
Yeah.
Ooh. Yeah. I think this card is something that if you're going to run Merchant 1 is almost a given. I know it sounds crazy, but with basically being taken away a cargo slot and putting this guy in its place, you're basically not losing a cargo slot, if that sounds accurate, because assuming that you don't have a bunch of one use only sort of cargo like that, you can switch down at when you see it, when you see oh God, this is my last chance to use something. So I guess here, just as an example, and it's something I wouldn't do on my list, but just as an example, say you started with the slicer. Is it Slicer Tools?
Yeah.
Okay, Slicer Tools.
So say you started with Slicer Tools, although I'm not a fan of it in this example, but say you did just for giggles. And then
what does Slicer Tools do?
That's the one that
I got it. Action. Choose one or more ships at range 1 to 3 that have a stress token. For each ship chosen, you may spend 1 energy to cause that ship to suffer 1 damage.
Right. And it is on my list that we'll describe later. But just in this example, say you're say you've got this thing down, or your opponent's got this thing down to almost nothing. Like he's whittled it down, and you know he's going to hammer it on the next turn to basically, in a sense, destroy this ship. And maybe I'm reading this wrong, maybe I'm doing the rules wrong, but that's what we're here for, right? So during the end phase, I burn this character and I change my slicer tools to cluster bombs, for an example. Knowing that, hey, I'm getting ready to be destroyed, all it says is after defending, I may discard the card. And if you do each of the ships at range 1 of the defending section, which as far as I know is the entire ship on this thing.
Well, no, it's got front and rear.
Is it front and rear? Okay, yeah. I wasn't sure. Section rolls 2 attack dice, suffering all damage and critical damage. So it doesn't say you can't do it if you're destroyed, and it sort of makes sense. If I was destroyed, all of my cluster bombs go out too. But in a sense, like a last ditch sort of I know I'm not going to get a chance to retaliate with my slicer tools or something else this turn, so I might as well try and take it into an offensive sort of thing. I could see. I mean, there's obviously other options, but I can see that that sort of change isn't available, like last second ditch effort to do damage.
If you know you're going to get destroyed the next turn, you want to stick that on there.
And at a pilot skill 1, you're gonna get destroyed before you get to do anything like firing.
Right, you're not gonna shoot.
So
right, like another one.
Like, I'm gonna die. I'm not gonna get to shoot. Yeah. I'm gonna switch over
take you down with me.
Yeah. And to me, it's like it fits. It's kind of a all right. Sure, let's just unload all the thermal detonators or whatever we have just rolling around in the back of the ship.
And there's another one I like, frequency jammer. 4 points. When you perform a jam action, choose one enemy ship that does not have a stress token that is at range 1 of the ship that you jammed, and you give that one a stress token. So it's almost like a super jam. Now,
I think that was the original name for this card, is Super Jam.
Yes.
It's a space
Super Jam.
So raspberry. That was also an action movie from the 80s, Super Jam. No. What I like about it is because a lot of people will say, just take Tabana gas. Don't do anything else but Tabana gas because you're going to need it. But
not on this ship.
You can, you can take Tabana gas without taking Tabana gas.
Yes. For 0 points, you can basically use your super jammer and,
That's right.
be jamming up all these other ships. And then somebody's like, oh, why didn't I take Tabana gas? Both waits. Boom, flip it to Tabana gas and you got it. I mean, for 0 points.
You can give yourself gas at any time.
You can give yourself gas. That is right. So
yeah,
I think
he provides a lot of, especially on the Epic ship, he provides a lot of kind of usability, which is why I could see doing it on the Merchant one. Because in a sense, you're like, let me give it one of the cargo that I can probably just switch to at a later point if I really need it, since they are situational in a lot of ways, and put him on as my crew, and you've essentially gained a team for that kind of choice. A team and I guess one energy spot.
Well, and see, choice. And we talked about this a lot last time, but basically the idea that a lot of these don't get used, like you said at the beginning, no one takes these. Some of them are so-so or situational, or you'd rather have something else that's better. But now you actually get a chance to use these not often used cargo slots and then change it for the useful thing when you really need it.
Right.
And I like that because it allows you to use the stuff that no one's ever touched. And that's what I love, about X-Wing Navigations.
It's tricky.
It's tricksy. Yeah. It's tricksy and it's pulling out stuff that no one's seen before on the table. You're like, you've got what? What does that do again? I have no idea.
Right.
And then, I forgot all about that. Dang it. I lost the game because of it. Curse you. I love that. All right. Now, do we want to talk about the non-epic aspect of this guy, or do we want to finish all the epic and then go back to him?
Let's talk about him now. So let's clear the air on this card.
All right. So in a non-epic stance, which is where you'll probably see this guy most often because not everyone plays epic. He can be played. So he basically allows you to
replace an illicit card.
Yeah.
With something else.
Yeah, he takes up your crew slot, but
so
he's 0 points.
You can't have some of those really good low point cost scum crew, like Forlom or more like Zuckuss, really. Zuckuss is one of the favorites.
Yeah. Or is even Dengar or Bosk, or there's a lot.
Yeah.
One of the things that Scum's known for is having really good crew.
Right.
So the thing about them is they're unusual pilots and they're unusual crew. That's kind of what Scum's about, and the various configurations you can mix between them. So, Phil, do you think having a 0-point cost crew can still have a overall cost because you lose that crew slot for that you normally would put someone very useful in?
Yes, Jim, I do.
So there's a penalty for choosing a 0-point crew.
It's an opportunity cost. So you take this guy instead of somebody who would be more conventionally useful, like Zuckuss, for example, who costs 1 point, and it's just conventionally useful, like all the time. So you pass up on the opportunity to take Zuckuss for taking this guy, or any number of other crew upgrades, like K4 security droid is good, Dengar is good, Bosk can be good in certain builds. There's a lot of good Scum crew.
Yeah, who knows with the quad jumper coming out, someone might want to put Ketsu on you on somebody to keep those target lock or target vector beams out there. So I see you're saying that because you miss out on the crew slot, that is itself the cost of having this guy.
Yeah, it's an opportunity cost.
Okay. J-Bot, what are your thoughts on the matter?
I agree.
What? You agree?
I wish
don't,
Jake was here so he could check his,
but I'm not gonna go
his
through
circuits.
This giant fight again.
Do I need to take off your restraining bolt? Do you want to at least summarize your perspective? Summarize your perspective.
My perspective is pretty simple. There's no opportunity cost if there is no other option that you can take. As a 0-point crew, if your list has 100 points already, there is no other opportunity lost by putting a 0-point guy on your list. If you do not have 100 points and you're trying to decide between two crew, then yes, you're losing an opportunity. But because he's 0 points, you can put him on a list that's already at 100 points for no loss. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It does make sense in the context of already having a 100-point list.
Right. So my viewpoint in this is if he is free, you can put him in any list as long as you have an empty crew slot. If you had an empty crew slot already, that means you have already determined that you didn't need a different crew besides him. So you're just throwing him in there for free, and in a sense, you're gaining something for no cost. And I don't think that that's right for the game. Unless it's a fix, you're gaining something for free that you would otherwise not have access to. And yes, Scum has tons of great crew, but if you wanted that crew, you would have taken it already. So this guy is essentially there as a filler card. He is not there as an option one or the other. He's there, you know what, I'm using him as filler. If you're using him as like a pinpoint of your strategy for one of your ships, that's different. But because he can just be thrown in there for filler, then he's essentially giving you something for no loss. And so that's why I'm not a fan. That's why I'm not a fan of 0-point cost cards in general, is unless they're an obvious fix to some problem in the game, then they're just there giving you things for free. There's no loss to them as a player. And that's what I'm not a fan of. Is
so why have them in there why even bother making it separate?
Exactly. It kind of goes hand in hand with some of the the upgrade cards that we've seen of late, which seem to be getting worse and worse. Where what is the ARC, for example? And
I don't know. I don't agree with the ARC. I'd say that the ARC title, that the cost of that title is built into the ARC itself, I think.
Right, and the reason I'm okay with it, the reason I'm not okay with it, as an example for the ARC, is the only reason they did that is because there's not enough room on the card to put all of the rules they wanted to put on that, unless they're going to put a title out at some future date for the arc that would make you choose between the two.
Or with
maybe
all
there's
and I don't really see that much of a problem with that either. I mean, that would be
and maybe there's a
plan
too. For that. Maybe there's a plan for that long term. But have we seen that with any other ship? You know, have we seen them suddenly
there's a
provide
few Special Forces TIE Fighter?
No. What I'm saying, have we suddenly seen them come out with a new title for a ship that's been in existence for a long time? That wasn't X-Wing or wasn't, you know, like normally the titles come with the ship. And so that means they're designing them in when the ship is released with maybe this vague idea of, you know, we might come out with a Darth Vader's tie at some later date.
I think
I have an example of one.
You know, that
the
sort of thing.
The Andrasi the Fire Spray came out with Most Wanted. It's the Mad Bomber. It allows a fire spray to take more bombs. That is, I think, the only one that I can think of.
I've got two examples at least. I've got the TIE Interceptor, the Royal Guard title, which is really important for the TIE Interceptor's game balance. Came out in Imperial releases. Say, you know, for better or worse. Certainly had an effect on that ship's viability. Also, the A-Wing, the test pilot title, which lets it take another
so what you're saying
talent.
is basically two fixes, not actual like choices. So what's another A-Wing title that can be taken?
Well, there is no other A-Wing title, but it's what I'm saying is those are both 0 point titles. Those are both 0 point titles that are practically auto includes.
Right, because they're fixes for something that's wrong with the ship.
Right, and I don't see too much of a difference between a fix for something and essentially a fix that was included with the original pack. Just to add more text.
That's where I have issues, is because it's not a fix for something if it's coming in the ship. That means you broke the ship before you released it, right?
Yeah, sort
of. Or
you
just needed more rules. I needed the backside of the card to have additional rules for the.
Let me segue, because what you're saying perfectly goes into my own unique viewpoint and perspective of this card, and I do say that Visago is a fix. Visago, excuse me. He is a fix for illicits, because as it is now, how many illicits do you ever actually see in the game? You see glitter stim.
But we can say that for so many other cards. You know, where's the fix for all the pilot talents that nobody ever takes? Where's the fix for all the modifications that nobody ever takes? Just because you've got a class of cards that only 3 or 4 are getting used by the majority of players doesn't mean that the entire class needs to be fixed by. And I know this one card doesn't necessarily fix the entire class.
Yeah, I mean,
doesn't mean that you aim something out there to fix an entire class just because 20 or 30% of them are getting used versus the rest.
I don't think that it necessarily improves the utility of all illicit upgrades. I don't know about that.
Well, I'm not saying all, but let me go through with my thought, because I say that you only see a few of the illicits ever. Some of them are one shot only. But you basically see like glitter stim, and you see initial dampeners and black market slicer tools. You occasionally see cloaking device. Most of these
very
are 2 points, and occasionally 1 point. But overall, some of these things I could actually see uses for. They're very situational. And would you ever put the points for something that is very situational for one of these illicits? And the answer overall is no. No, I don't see that I would use this thing so often enough that I would ever spend like the 2 points on this particular one, like feedback array or something like that. But if you were able to swap out an illicit that you might use to then use for one of these, you know what, this is that one rare freaking time I would actually use this illicit. Boom, I'm swapping out the 0 point guy to actually use this thing. So like if you've got feedback array, let's say you start using it and you start damaging your own ship, but you're hitting someone like a TIE Defender or Sunterfellow or someone who's really hard to hit, but eventually you don't want to destroy yourself. All right, whoop, I swap it for, I don't know, cloaking device, or I switch it to dead man switch because I'm about to die. Boom, I explode and suddenly I do a whole bunch of damage to your important ships around me. Or I switch to glitter stim, or I switch it to scavenger crane. I think that you have the option to swap for these things when that situation arises, because X-Wing is very situational, and you might find the situation where you want a different one of these things. Oh, it would have been great if I had inertial dampeners right now. They go whoop, bam, and use it. And that's where I see it's a fix, because some of these things will only see use if you use this guy Visago, because otherwise people are basically never going to take some of these things. But now you have the option of doing it. Like, so you take, I don't know, inertial dampeners, but suddenly you're playing against a stress mechanic ace, like like a Sunterfell or something like that. So you're suddenly like, man, I wish I took slicer tools. Oh wait, whop, I have it now.
And one thing that I will say about this is that if we're talking about game balance and sort of necessarily a competitive game, then the opportunity cost for this guy is real, because there's practically no Scum build out there that doesn't have all the crew slots filled up, because the crew are so good. So taking out one of those nominal, generally useful crew to replace with this guy is a cost when we're talking about the competitive game and balance.
Well, it's a cost if you have already put, obviously.
Yeah, but I'm saying that everybody already does.
But I guess the question I have here is, how many, and I don't know, but how many of these competitive lists are using an illicit, like, in general? Like, how many of them are using it?
There's a lot, particularly glitter stem.
Yeah.
Glitter stem and inertial dampeners.
So they're using glitter stem, and they put glitter stem on their ship with the express purpose of using it, correct?
Yeah.
So basically he becomes useless. You've burnt your crew slot for a guy who you're not going to ever use, because you're not going to give up glitter stem for an EMP device. More than likely.
I disagree, because you could take something else and then switch it to glitter stem. Like, here's probably the best example that you could do, and it's kind of the one that's the most broken. So, cloaking device. You can perform a free cloaking action. So, and then at the end of the round, if you are still cloaked, roll a die. On an eyeball, discard this card and decloak the ship and discard your cloak token. So your cloaking device breaks, you're forced to decloak, and it's gone for good.
Right.
All right, so
no one really uses that.
I've seen some people use it to actually good effect, particularly on like a tiny mind link lists where they take Paylob, who steals tokens, and he takes a cloaking device, and then he just kings out cloak the entire time and never shoots, but gives out the the focus tokens. But you cloak, so you get your cloak token on your ship. Then you swap out cloaking device to something else, like, I don't know, glitter stem. You're still cloaked.
Yeah.
You don't get rid of the cloak
device.
You don't ever have to decloak. You can't shoot, but let's say you're a hawk who you don't bother taking a turret with. You don't ever need to shoot. All you're there is like someone like Paylob who can just mess with people.
So here's my expectation. I have a pretty strong feeling that when this ship releases, there's going to be an FAQ for cloaking device that basically takes that away.
That is very possible.
Yeah, yes. I think it's pretty much going to say, if you have a cloak on, you're going to have to roll for it no matter what. Like, so it's a great idea. I just think that you're going to lose it pretty quickly. I seriously doubt FFG is going to let you
cheesy.
keep it.
It's cheesy.
Yeah.
I have had people say that they will use cloaking device on Cobra Talonbane because he's not so good at the approach, but then once he gets in range, if he lives, he's pretty deadly. So they will actually use cloaking device to kind of, for a round or two, to then be able to engage people. And let's say that the cloaking device hasn't gone away at that point. Well, okay, he can't take a crew, but the general idea is the same. If you had a ship that could cloak and then wanted to get into the fray and it hasn't blown up yet, you could then swap it.
You could do it on a Mist Hunter.
Yeah. Yeah, there's also like EMP devices during the combat phase. Instead of performing an attack, you discard it. So you could actually switch it to an EMP device if you had something.
I mean, that's the thing you run into with most of these illicits is the vast majority of them are use and discard. They're not a use all the time sort of thing. I mean, feedback array is, but in general,
the surprise factor on an EMP device is actually significant. Because like, what if you could be if the EMP card isn't on the table, you're not expecting that you can be ionized. So you might be flying close to the board edge because you can normally just turn out of it. But if someone pops the EMP on you, you could end up flying off the board edge because there's no other because you can't avoid it, and that being a total surprise.
Right, because basically it takes an action to swap out, and then with the EMP device, you just don't shoot.
It doesn't take an action to swap out.
No, he's just in phase.
He's in phase. Yeah.
Oh, all right. I'm sorry. I was actually listening. Sorry, my thing messed up.
So I think that's an important distinction, because if he was an action to swap out, then you could do this EMP device. It would be that may be why we can't do that. Essentially, that would be OP.
Here's the ones that don't get rid of: scavenger crane, feedback array. Let's see, cloaking device potentially, and then let's see. There's discard that, and then black market slicer tool. So those are the ones that don't burn out. And there's some of the other ones like burnout slam. Let's say you're actually a large ship with black market slicer tools, and you're not facing a stress list. All right, whoop, swap it out for burnout slam. Boom, you get out of there. Or inertial dampeners, or rigged cargo chute, something like that. So it's not like...
Well, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying he has no usability. That's actually what I'm banking on, is that he has usability for zero cost, unless you specifically say, you know what, I need to build my list around his ability to do this shenanigan. Okay, yeah, he has an actual cost to it, but if he's I've already got Glitter Stem on the list and I got an empty crew slot, I'm just going to throw him on there just because you never know.
Yeah, my argument is that if we're talking about game balance, then that mainly applies to competitive metagame in which those crew slots are filled up. Almost invariably.
Right, then he's never going to get used in that instance anyway, because they're already filled with other better
Possibly not.
Yeah, so I think he kind of goes along with this theme of being able to swap in for stuff, and I think it's kind of like, to me, a fix for illicits. I mean, not like a crazy, like X7 title for Defender fix,
not an auto include.
But I think it has options out there that you might actually see some of these other things on the table for once, and that's where I'm getting at.
Okay, I think we've all said our piece.
Without getting into too much of an argument here.
All right, so what other crew do we have on this ship? Jim,
what his name?
Jim, I think I can't. I don't have the page up. I forget who it is.
As Morrigan.
Who is that again?
As Morrigan.
Hey, okay. I think I found the card now.
Yeah, here it is. So, As Morrigan is he's another guy from Rebels. He's the fat, pink, whiny dude. I'm sure you guys.
Crime lord or gang lord? Yeah.
I don't know if I would call him a lord.
Crime boss. How about that? Yeah, crime boss.
So he's huge ship only, scum only. At the start of the end phase, you may spend 1 energy to replace a face-up crew or team upgrade you have equipped with another upgrade card of the same type of equal or fewer squad points. He costs 2, and he's crew. That's it.
So I was kind of, at first I didn't think too much about this, and then I really started to think about it. I started thinking about all the different combinations and things you can do, and I even started a thread, which hopefully we'll put in the show notes, that kind of goes through even by point tier cost of all the different guys. And I was actually really impressed, and so I dropped a whole bunch of bombs, and last time we recorded, and I want to say, hey, so what do you guys think about it, and then get ready to tell all my stuff. But you heard all my thoughts and ideas on this guy. I don't think really too many people thought about this guy, until I really started saying a few things. I think that he has quite a bit of potential for Epic.
Right. You can certainly do a lot of list configuration with this guy because he doesn't get used up the way Cicatro Vizago does. He does cost points, and he does cost energy for you to use this ability.
And
you can definitely,
only epic. And we also have surely another epic ship that's coming out that we don't even know what it is. So. And I'm sure he could be used on that, and that could be just a whole nother level of Asmorganness. But so I started off with teams. There's only 4 teams to think about. And it's going to be for the same points. Now, basically, you've got ordnance teams, 5 points. Ordnance teams help you or ordnance ships around you. So if you really want to use them, then you have to start with them. But I usually only see ordnance teams on people who take ordnance modification slots on an epic ship. And I'm not as much interested because you're usually very specific. Either I have a list that has a ton of ordnance and I need it to help my other support ships around me, or I have ordnance and I need it to do that. So I don't really consider ordnance too important as a particular option. But the other 3, I do. Gunnery team, spend an energy and you can modify your epic dice, which is really important because you can't focus, with epic weapons. And it also works on ordnance too, but that you fire, not around you, but it works in ordnance that you fire for an energy. And the sensor team, which lets you take target locks up to range 5. And then there's the engineering team that if you go straight, you get an extra energy, which we all know, have found out with epic ships, you freaking want energy.
Right.
It's important. So, and all those are 4 points. They're all interchangeable.
Right. You can freely go back and forth between those as needed. Yes, and I kind of want to go into, not talk too much about that without jumping into the 4-point crews that would work that you have for Scum. And it really comes out to be kind of just one, because one 4-point crew is Hotshot Copilot, which says, you fire and they have to use their focus tokens. Well, you're firing at PS1. Unless the rest of your list is a whole bunch of PS1 ships, which is possible, kind of. You don't really want to do that. But the other one is Targeting Coordinator. And that's one that does not really see a lot of use. But I think you could. See, Targeting Coordinator, it's limited energy. You spend 1 energy to choose 1 friendly ship at range 1 or 2, acquire a target lock, then assign the blue target lock token to the chosen ship. So you're basically passing on a target lock to somebody around you who might need it, like an ordnance ship. So what I see is early on, you can go ahead and take like Targeting Coordinator, Sensor Team, which lets you target lock outside of range 3, and something like Weapons Engineer, which lets you get multiple target locks. And here you go. You can actually start passing on 2 target locks to, say, some Y-wings that are loaded with torpedoes.
Okay, question before you go too deep in this. Maybe I'm misreading this card, but the way I read Targeting Coordinator is it's the one doing the target locking, right? So does that mean you can use your Weapons Engineer at the same time as it?
Weapons Engineer, it says you may maintain 2 target locks, only 1 per enemy ship, and then it says, it allows you to take 2 target locks on different ships. It says when you acquire a target lock, you may lock onto 2 different ships. So
it
lets you get two target locks as long as they're on different ships. And then
right, so you're saying burn the energy.
You may spend 1 energy to choose 1 friendly ship at range 1 to 2, acquire a target lock, then assign it. So part of it might be, there might come the ruling that says, well, you may spend 1 energy to choose 1 friendly, so you can't do it for both. There could be that ruling.
Right, well, that's what it's saying. You would basically keep the target lock, 1 target lock for yourself, and give 1 to a friendly ship.
Yeah. Or if you don't take Weapons Engineer, you got 1, and you can pass that 1 on to other people. But if you're dealing with an approach, and everybody knows ordnance, all the modifiers you can. So if you've got torpedoes, and you've got, if you can give someone a target lock, they can then use another action like a focus to make sure they modify those dice. So that you're basically firing your target lock, and you've got a focus to actually modify their torpedo rolls, which is great. So you've got plasma torpedoes that don't have native ones, and you can splash up a larger epic opponents. Or if you've got, say, ion torpedoes that have no native modifier, and you really want to hit like a big squadron of enemy ships coming in at you, which is important to be able to dodge stuff, you can do that, or even ionize a big epic ship so it gets less energy the next turn. That is really good. Even with a proton torpedo, you might roll more than one eyeball. So to me, you can start passing out, even if you've just got something else that just wants to shoot. Like if you've got CROC's fighters and you just want to give them target lock so they can then use another action later on their regular attack. You can start doing this, but then, oh no, you get in close range. Boom, you swap out for other stuff. You can swap out sensor team for something else. You can swap out target and coordinator for something else, because the teams are all the same points, except of course ordnance, which we've gone about, but we're just going to ignore them. You can switch it to gunnery team, and then suddenly, boom, you're in fighting, and you need more energy, because once you start off with a full energy, then suddenly you realize you start needing more. Boom, swap it out for an engineering team, and you start getting more energy every round. And for the crew, I went through, target and coordinator I think is great early on, but not so much later. For 3 points, you have a list of weapons engineer, which could be useful. You've got navigator, which lets you change, what your pick is, which, you epics go after regular ships and you only kill things if you run it over. That might be a good thing to try to do. Like, you can actually change what the heck you're doing. I mean, it's not like game breaking, but hey, you would not take navigator ever, but you might swap for the option for it, and then swap it out later. There's also Dengar. If you don't have Dengar on another ship, you can now modify your dice, particularly if it's for a unique target. And operations specialist, which is yet to come out, and it's been really poo-pooed by a lot of the other standard 106. So basic operational specialist. If a ship near you at range 1 or 2 fires and misses, you can give a focus token to somebody else. If you've got a whole lot of ships around you, this could be big.
Right.
If you've got like a bunch of Seeks and Z95s and such.
In an epic game.
And somebody misses, boom, you give somebody else unfired yet a focus token. Now they get to fire, or maybe use it on defense, or that's actually not a bad option. And particularly if you don't have to start with it, you can swap for it and then swap it back for later on for something else. Like construction droid, who would help you repair damage done to your ship.
I wonder if this would be good combined with I wonder if this would be good combined with a tiny mine link. Have a bunch of ships with a tiny mine link. Like if one is close to the targeting, close to this guy, then the operations specialist, then you can feed focus to the entire list when somebody misses.
Yes.
And this guy has, I think we discussed it the last time, this guy has so much kind of options, so many options that are out there. I think the funniest one that we ultimately came up with was the Greedo idea. Was the idea of, oh, look, I can get behind someone and know they're not going to get a shot at me. I'm switching to Greedo for a turn just to all my shots, or at least to have a chance of getting a critical hit. Was it face up? Is that what it was?
Let me read the Greedo card for those who never see it in play. The first time you attack each round and the first time you defend each round, the first damage card dealt is dealt face up. So normally you would never want to put this card on an epic ship, but like some ships, like the Raider, have a forward firing arc, and if you get behind them, you're there. It's not going to get to fire at you, and other ships might. But let's say you've actually got full shields and the other forces are engaged and you're behind a Raider, you can spend an energy, pop out for Greedo. You've already got their shields down, or their shields are close to being down, and other ships can knock it down, and boom, you fire and deal a critical damage to an epic ship. How important how nasty are critical hits on epic ships?
Yeah, and then at the end phase, basically switch right back to whatever. And at one point, you're not so much limiting yourself. That's the thing with all the crews. There's so many 1-point crew options. I know they're not all Scum only, but there are some great ones out there. And I was actually, it's not on the list that I built for later we can discuss, but One of them I was looking at was, I think it's advanced homing missiles that do the automatic crit.
Yep, only range 2.
Only range 2, but still you can carry Boba on that at least on this ship, you can put Boba Fett on that without a major kind of loss to how many crew you've put on the thing in general. And hitting an epic ship and stripping an upgrade off of it is a massive hit to it. And you're kind of hit or miss sometimes with Boba on smaller lists, but against an epic ship, I mean, you can strip something major off of one of those and really cripple one, not just with the crit, but also with the with taking one of their major upgrades.
Let's say you've got ion cannon, which does a crit when it hits. And then you've got Boba Fett. Let's say you're facing somebody who's got an ordnance ship. They've got their epic ship loaded out with ordnance.
Right.
If you've got an ion cannon in Boba Fett, like, and
well,
you swap to him later in the game.
Ion cannon. I mean, because the ion cannon, you got to at least get through their shields, but the advanced homing just does a face-up damage card.
Yep.
So that as soon as that happens, you're like, goodbye ordnance tubes, and goodbye ship.
If you've got a raider, like you're facing a raider that's loaded with ordnance tubes, and they've spent a whole bunch of missiles, and like that's what they have, whoop, you get rid of ordnance tubes. Suddenly, that each missile is a one-shot weapon, then it's gone.
It's a one-shot. Yeah.
So that thing, they got one shot, and then they got no other hard points. You know, they got nothing. They got nothing but their main gun.
Yeah, they have one. They have basically turned their ship into a very giant normal ship at that point, because it's whatever. It might have 2 missiles on it, or 2 torpedoes, or some combination thereof, and they can only fire them once ever because they have to discard them at that point, right?
Yep. Now, I was going over some of the other 2-point ones. I'll just kind of go over quickly. Some of them are really interesting. The WD-15 repair droid, you can actually get rid of critical hits if you spend enough energy, which is crazy good. So yeah, you might be bouncing around the 3-point, cruise, but suddenly you get a nasty critical you need to get rid of. You swap to a 2-point repair droid, and you can take that out. Or let's say you start with that. There's Tactician, stresses people out at range 2. Mercenary Co-Pilot adds crits in at range 3. That's good right there. Another one that I thought of that just might be useful enough, maybe, is Saboteur. If you could swap to Saboteur and then swap away from Saboteur, you spend an action, roll a die, 50-50 chance a face-down damage card becomes a face-up damage card. You've got epic ships that can replenish their shields. So, boom, you put the hurt on a ship, boom, it gets all its shields back. You just might be willing to, for a round, spend your action to try to go for Saboteur and crit that sucker to cripple it.
That actually brings up a question in my head. So say you're facing a raider, for example, and the back end is the one that has that face down card. Now Saboteur's range 2, correct? Does that mean that the rear end has to be range 2, or the entire ship has to be range 2 for me to be able to do that?
I say rear end, but actually it says choose. Yeah, actually it's at range 1. So maybe that's not so good.
Oh, is it only range 1? Okay.
Yeah, I just actually looked at it. It makes it a lot less viable. All right,
it's still there. I mean, with this guy that leaves that option, and the one that we haven't mentioned is you can actually change this guy out too. You can only do it once, obviously, but you can actually, in dire circumstances, dump this guy out the back and put somebody in there in his place. Yep. So he provides a ton of options, which is always fun on the big epic ships, because so much of their stuff is situational. It's almost the entire ship situational at that point.
Right. Here's another one.
Just the options of things you could do are endless, really.
Lots of Razi. Remove a stress from someone, and you get an evade token. I mean, if they're either got stress on them, or you're dishing out stress with jam. You can get a free evade, which is huge in an epic ship, avoiding 1 damage. That's pretty big. Some of the other ones, Shield Technician's good. It means you can choose how much energy you want to spend to replenish your shields, because normally if you want to replenish your shields, you've got to use all of your energy. Let's say you're down 1 or 2 points. You only want to spend 1 or 2 energy. Boom, that's good. You got a guy hired to do it. Zuckus, you can force the enemy to reroll to gain stress. Oh, wait a second. Epic ships can't be stressed. So basically, you can force them to reroll all their dice all the time for no penalty.
Yeah, exactly. Zuckus is really good on an epic ship.
Yeah. Another one I thought of that I don't think many people would think of is IG-88D. And then in your list, the only other IG-88 that would affect an epic ship is IG-88A. Every time your attack destroys somebody, you gain a shield back. What if you go with something like assault missiles on a ship, and you start splashing damage around to a bunch of like TIE fighters or something? There's a good chance you could kill one or more ships, that round. And getting shield pack for each one dead is nothing bad. You're gonna call shenanigans?
I'm gonna call shenanigans. We actually had this exact conversation last time we recorded. Remember?
Well, I said missiles. If you run things over. Well,
yeah. If you're running things over, you can get points back, but you can get shields back. But assault missile splash damage doesn't count.
Only if you perform an attack that destroys the defender. And actually, running people over would not allow it, so you have to perform an attack on them. That's right. So I think homing missile would be better. Homing missile would work on somebody, because if you then destroy him, you can pick him, boom, pick him, boom, and you just start targeting people, and you start getting shields back.
Yeah, that would work. Epic ships already have options to get their shields back, but if you're including IG-88A in your list, this is definitely something to think about.
Yeah. Sorry, so I know I went through a lot of them, and there's not left in the thread.
Yeah, is there any crew that you haven't covered here?
Yes.
I've forgotten Gunner.
Are you sure you don't want to?
Certain Gunner is still out there, isn't it?
Gonk, Bosk, Boshek.
Well, Boshek, I don't know if Boshek's gonna do an epic ship.
There's Kitsu Anyu, Inspiring Recruit, Intelligence Agent. There's a few out there that I didn't really.
The fun thing, I know we've talked about Boshek before, but the fun thing about Boshek against an epic list is it can alter, because it can accidentally put somebody in front of the ship. There is that oh crap, I completely forgot he had Boshek on that thing. So I mean, totally when people are trying to get in close to these ships, it can really cause some havoc if they're suddenly forced to change that one way or the other. But I do think he's funny. I don't know that I'd ever use him, but I think he's so funny. It's got to be one of my favorite cards recently for just the things just the nightmare you can cause anybody that has that kind of decision issue. I can't think of the name of it, but people who have this they get frozen in a decision kind of cycle. The things it can do to that person while they're trying to play a game is I hate to be humorous about it, but it kind of is. Decision paralysis, I think, might be the name of it.
Analysis paralysis.
And there you go, analysis paralysis. I knew someone would know. So what's left out here? What do we got left?
So on the C-ROC, I think that's we've pretty much gone over every crew card on the C-ROC. Is there what's left on the? So there's
still have the Seek. Still have all the changes to the new.
Let me just even stress kind of the overall concept that I see with these crews and the C-ROC and with Epic. It's about bringing choice, and you can maybe take some of these B-list items and then swap them out later for other things. Or it's about the situational aspect of X-Wing, where some people, you are only useful in very certain circumstances, but here you now have the ability to pull this stuff out and pull out these guys that you might never see on the table. And I think that I really, really like that aspect.
Yeah.
Of
it's kind of like a pro-choice expansion. Ship.
Yeah, I like that aspect. I think it's pretty cool.
Cool. Oh, and so one of the cards we should touch on before we move to the Seek is the heavy laser turret. I don't know if you guys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So the heavy laser turret is a C-ROC only upgrade. It has
which kills me at times.
Yeah, energy capacity
of 2.
It would be nice to have this on any number of other things. It's 2 energy capacity. It is 4 attack card. It reads attack energy. Spend 2 energy from this card to perform this attack against 1 ship, even a ship outside your firing arc. like I said, it's 4 attack dice, and it's range 2 to 3, and it's 5 points. So this is like a heavy laser cannon, except it's a turret, and it costs 2 fewer points.
And
doesn't have that drawback at range 3, or doesn't have the crit drawback.
Yeah, it doesn't have the crit to hit conversion,
you can do crits with
but it costs 2 energy to shoot.
Yeah.
This is a really nice gun.
Yeah, so we don't really know. I know the CR90 has this can't shoot behind you in the engines. We don't know if the C-ROC will have it.
I think that it will not, because the ship card, it's only one ship card.
Yeah.
So really, you could say that this is firing from that whole base, and you wouldn't have to worry about crossing the blue line. I was thinking about that earlier too.
Yeah. So you have 360 with no limitations, range 2 to 3.
I don't think there's any limitation.
Yeah, I can't imagine there are. It almost looks like they, at least if you look at the picture, like they took one of the docking clamp locations for it, and that's essentially what they've done.
Yeah.
Is put this in the docking clamp location, so you can. It essentially sticks below the ship. Is kind of the imagination I'm having for this. So it would be kind of crappy to limit you not to fire back through the second half, but there's no blue line on the card, so I guess I would think that would be why you could fire.
Yeah, I mean,
anywhere.
there's a blue line on the ship's base. But,
is there?
Yeah, because you're both
sides
of that. Both sides of that.
That's what I was wondering. I'm not really seeing one on the card when I look.
Oh, I'm sure there will be one though. Right?
Is there one on the? Is there one on the Gazanti? Is there a blue line?
There is. There must be, because there's 2 sections worth of damage cards.
Or you could just use the
really faint on this picture.
You might just be able to use the orange line, because to be honest, it can work the same. It's really really matters at the edges where it's almost straight anyways.
I'm sure there's going to be a visible blue line on this card on that ship base once we get it.
Oh, I will say though that even that arc, even if you aren't using the turret and using the forward arc, that is a really pretty nice large arc. You got pretty wide shot range if you have to use the firing arc. Like if you're not using the heavy, the heavy.
Yeah, that's why it has to be able to fire backwards across that blue line, if there is a blue line there, because otherwise you're just gaining 20 degrees at that point between the two sides. You're not getting very much out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I like it. I think it's a pretty nice weapon.
Yeah, I think we're going to see that a lot with this cruiser. I think there's pretty much no reason not to take that.
Yeah. Cool.
All right, so another thing that's coming in this expansion pack is the Seek with some new Seek stuff.
So the Seek is a new paint job on the old Seek.
Right. Yeah, it's got little racing stripes, I guess. It's got a different stripe pattern. But we know that it's going to come with at least one fixed card.
It's also going to come with reprinted versions of the Heavy Seek Interceptor. So that one that was, the Heavy Seek, in case you haven't heard it before, it changed it so you get a free hull upgrade when you buy the Heavy Seek title. So and it's going to actually reflect that on the cards that you buy. There's going to be some of those in there.
Now that I want to stop there. That to me is the most amazing thing, honestly, out of this whole pack. I know this sounds crazy and hyperbolic, but like they're reprinting a card with a fix on it. Did nobody else catch this? So there's so many opportunities to do the same thing with existing ships, with existing problem ships for fixes. Hey, look, we're going to come out with an expansion that includes one of these ships and 4 or 5 reprinted versions of a previous card that we needed to fix for one reason or another. So that means theoretically, oh, you know what? We can errata right now the point cost of some card that we screwed up a long time ago. And then knowing that 2 months from now, we're going to release a ship and just include in that, the same sort of ship, include in it the card that would replace it for all time, essentially. Even if you don't own the ship, that card is essentially replacing the old card at that point.
Yeah, it's theoretically possible that they could do something like that.
And that's where, like, this is the first instance I'm seeing of them essentially saying, we screwed up and we're reprinting a card. That's, in a sense, overwriting an old card.
Now, someone online had said that whenever they do change a card and then it comes out in a new product, that they have done this. And I know there's a few little cards I think like maybe lightning reflex or something, like a few little ones that I think potentially could have come out in another ship that apparently they have reprinted. Very, very minor ones, but apparently things that have been errated that are not really used that often.
Like erratas they're just there for functionality reasons.
Like Daredevil was, I think, changed, instead of
where they changed some of the wording on them to, in a sense, clean up, is the way I always looked at it. They changed the wording because it was a little ambiguous.
No, actually,
we're done.
They did actually change one of the cards, because I think it said it was like do the maneuver and gain a stress, and now it says it's like, oh, it becomes a red maneuver. They actually changed the wording.
Yeah, but like functionally, you're doing pretty much the same thing.
Well,
it works a little bit differently in the game, but it's not. This is a fundamental change to the card.
Well, no, it actually was a change to the card, because I was thinking of using it for here's the tree cluster and targeting astromech, because the card itself says, I think it becomes a red maneuver, and then the rewording says it becomes you do a maneuver and you gain a stress. And the difference was that if it was a red maneuver, targeting astromech would work, but because of the wording change, targeting astromech wouldn't work. So it actually had like a rule.
I know what you're saying. I'm just saying that this is adding like new functionality to the card, not changing existing functionality.
That one's
not tweaking.
Yeah, tweaking the way the rule was because they wanted it to work a certain way, and the wording didn't come out right. But here's the question for a change, whether it did or didn't happen. So, because I don't know, I'm going to ask. So, when the cloaking device for the Scum one, when the Scum illicit cloaking device came out, I'm going to make the assumption it came with a cloaking device rule card. Did that rule card include on the decloak and cloak? Did it include the change to the cloak rule? Because we all have that cloak and decloak cards that just explain that rule. Did that change on those cards? Because can anybody? I don't know that y'all can answer that right now, and I know Jim certainly can't. But I'm just curious because I've only got the old one from the original Phantoms. So I'm just curious if anyone out there can say yes or no.
It's possible that reprints of the TIE Phantom also carry that change.
Right, and that's what I'm wondering is if the reprint.
I think that we can expect that.
Yeah, I would expect it too. I was just curious if they could point to it, because if they did, then essentially, although we expect it, it would be a very kind of, we're not going to announce that we made this change to the cards, but we did. And it might be, maybe we should go back and look at some of these other ones that got errated to make sure that old cards are still, in a sense, tournament legal. They aren't, out of print, out of date cards that we can't use anymore. Not that we play in tournaments, but no, in general, the whole idea of them doing that to me opens this huge doorway for future changes. We've done it before now. They've set a precedent of reprinting a card with, in a sense, completely different rules. So I'm curious if they're going to use this all the time. Not all the time, but use it to fix some of the stuff that people have identified as problems, or if it'll just be really, really big ones that they need to fix. I guess but like I said, to me, it's the most amazing thing out of this is they've put out precedent now that they will change a card, the printing of a card in a major way.
Adding new functionality. That's very interesting. Yeah.
Which opens a lot of doors for fixes for existing ships that we all complain about.
I wonder if we would ever see I guess we sort of did see a nerf in terms of like the Phantom cloaking action. Yeah. I wonder if we would ever see like a nerf as dramatic as this.
What about Deadeye?
I don't know.
Deadeye. Will new prints of Deadeye show it that it's small ship only? That would be the equivalence.
That would be a. That would be. I don't know. If it's necessarily as major change as this, but in a way it was.
It feels like in between, but yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know. If you're considering the tournament aspect of how
it certainly had a big impact.
Yeah, it was definitely had a huge impact, but in a sense, it wasn't a rule, like a complete rule change, if that makes sense. It almost just clarified it. Like, this really should have been small ship only versus.
Yeah.
Oh, we just forgot the printer didn't put that text on it. So
I have to admit, I care less about the potentials and possibilities and such, because I'm like, you know what, they'll do what they'll do.
They will, but to me, it opens up the doorway to put fixes in place that they've identified and just haven't figured out a way to do it. You know, it's like, oh crap, maybe, and I know I'm always using the Hawk, maybe the Hawk should have had a 2 primary attack. So in the future, we're going to eventually, you know, have something that comes out with a Hawk as an additional ship, kind of like this one. And we're going to reprint Hawk cards. You know, here's a stack of all the old Pilot Hawk cards to replace them, to give them a 2 primary, for example. And that's a major change that they could easily do with essentially a reprint, although it would be a lot of cards.
Yeah. So I have to admit, with this new title, I like the idea of it, though, because the one thing I said about the heavy Seek, well, that's great, but it doesn't fix the normal Seek, because you might want to fly a normal Seek. It's not all about just the cannons and the heavy Seek, blah, blah, blah. I know that's everyone else does, but, you know, I kind of like TIE fighters over Z95s, and I kind of like the idea of having something like a TIE fighter in a scum list that wasn't overcosted, that you could put in a list. And so the new title, Light Seek Interceptor, kind of addresses this.
Right. So Light Seek Interceptor is a Seek-only title, and it says all damage cards dealt to you are dealt face up. You may treat all bank maneuvers as green maneuvers, and you cannot equip modification upgrades as -2 points. So it's going to bring down the cost of a Cartel Spacer, I think, to 12 points.
Yes.
It's going to make it potentially more vulnerable, because, you know, sometimes you'll get like a bad crit. So I think sometimes a lot of time, you know, with these ships, a lot of times you're going to be getting crits anyway, because crits get canceled last, and you have to punch through the shield. So, you know, and oftentimes you also get destroyed in that shot that gets through the shields. So
yeah, can I also just say that adding the green to the 3 bank isn't really that big a deal to me, like, because the 1 and the 2 already is green, and so it basically turns the 3 green bank, which, if you're doing, I don't know, like in a tiny mind link list where you need to clear stress because you gain stress, you could have, you know, some impact there. But otherwise, that aspect, it doesn't really do a lot.
Yeah, I don't see it being a huge difference. You know, obviously the main benefit to this card is the -2 squad point cost. That brings it more or less in line with the TIE Fighter.
J-Bot, what do you think about because a lot of people have poo-pooed the title for the, you know, all your damage cards are crits. What do you think about that, J-Bot?
No opinion. Doesn't think that's very important at all, I guess. Did
we lose J-Bot?
Knock, knock.
No, I'm sorry. You can't be expected. I don't know where it cut off, but I'm with Phil on this. Like, you can't really expect your ship to live very long if you have 2 hull. So once this, I mean, basically with all the dice, with all the damage kind of increase that's been happening in this, when people are hitting you with 4 dice and 5 dice attacks, how much can you expect out of this thing? Really, it really is a cannon fodder blocking sort of just annoying ship, a lot like the cheap ties, like the Academy ties are, which is get in your way, block it for bigger, you know, kind of heavier hitters type of ships. And I don't have any real issues with this. The -2, I know you guys hear me complain about -2, but to me that feels very much like a, you know, fix for this ship is what it feels like. Much like the A-Wing one. It feels like a fix for the cheap version of this. And when they said, oh yeah, all face-up damage cards, or all damage or face-up, like, what do you do? I got 2 hull. If you're hitting me and I'm taking that crit, I'm probably already dead anyway. I mean, there's a chance that you get hit for 1 and it's not a direct hit. And to me, in general, the guy's already a really low pilot skill. I'm not worried about being knocked down to pilot skill 0. You know, that sort of stuff I'm not really super concerned over. So,
well, also imagine if one of those crits it causes you stress. Now you can go a 3 bank to clear it.
Right. There's a lot more kind of worrying things than worrying about this taking a face-up damage card when you get through
Here's another thought. A Black Squadron TIE Fighter at PS4 with an EPT is 14 points. You take a Tanzari Point Veteran with this title, an EPT at 13 points. And it has the ability to target lock.
Yeah. And it technically has a shield.
It has a shield instead of a hull
point.
It
does get one opportunity to avoid a crit, and unlike the TIE fighters and things if they get hit. So. And
I have to admit, I have played vanilla Seeks without the heavy title, and they can target lock, and that thing matters. If you've got a few of these things, one or two even just in your list, a lot of times your opponent is focusing on the bigger, more important targets. And these things actually get within range 1 often enough because it's 2 attack dice. People are going to ignore it, and it can get up there, and it's got like a 1 hard turn. You can get up and get within range 1 and start smashing out, 3 attack dice, and you've got a target lock that actually can help you with that. And I've found at times I've been able to get a target lock and a focus and at range 1 shots with a Seek, and I can actually do damage to stuff. Okay, maybe if we're not playing like high level Palpatine X7 Defenders stuff, but maybe if you've got enough of them at range 1 and all that. But what I'm saying is overall, people should not really knock that, that ability for the ship to actually use its target lock ability in a good way. I don't think it's necessarily so bad. But I also agree. I like vanilla Seeks, and I think that they do have a spot. There's also the new Swarm Leader, where you can spend, someone else has an EPT, you spend an
Swarm
evade.
Leader with these, we're seeing more and more of that Swarm Leader, and I think that Swarm Leader card with these can be really, really damaging. So that's, I don't think it's bad. I think it's very interesting, and hopefully it will bring more Seeks to the table, is kind of my opinion of the whole thing.
Yeah, I think it has its uses. I think it's good. I think particularly in like non-tournament games, I think it's awesome. I think it's great to throw out something else. You've got various scenarios or something. You need a fast little Seek, a cheap thing to throw out there. I like the idea. It's maneuverable. It can get places. Let's say you've got, I don't know, a Gen Con or a world event with things coming up. One of the things I keep thinking about is the way we're going to be running it is you're going to have a stable or 200 points of stuff to bring, and you could take Seeks, but you could take a couple of light Seeks and heavy Seeks in your list, and then like add it or take it away or whatnot depending on the mission. So you can take Seeks and you can throw on the light Seek title, or you can throw on the heavy Seek title depending on what the mission is. And I think that's like when you have some sort of campaign or narrative event like that, it actually adds some flavor to it. I like that aspect.
Yeah, they could be pretty good because you could customize them depending on the mission, and that's something that other people may not necessarily be able to do. Their lists.
And I think taking a Seek with both titles and maybe a couple like a Mangler cannon and Ion cannon and a couple of those, you have a highly customizable ship for the situation.
Yeah, that could actually be very important.
Yeah,
Seek's
and
OP.
it's pretty inexpensive in general to do that too. So.
Right.
I like it. Like I said, I like it. I know I normally bash on very cheap 0 and negative point cost cards, but I actually like these. We never see Seeks. I almost never see Seeks on the table. So to me, that means there must be a problem if even the casual people aren't putting a Seek on the table. So
you can't call this card overpowered.
No, not really. I mean, it's taking away your modification slot. Not that I knew too many people were putting modifications on.
And the face-up damage card's pretty brutal.
Yeah, so I don't see it that it's got a lot of detractor, portions to it too. So I think it's okay.
You know what I'm thinking? If you get a Hawk at range 1 of one of these Seeks, it can fire 2 dice, knock out the shield, crit it, direct hit it. You could have a Hawk with main guns, one-shot a ship.
Yeah,
hey,
I mean it's always been
I've never had that happen before.
It's just really funny to me. All right, so I know we've gone kind of long. Do we have any other parting thoughts?
Yeah, there's 4 Seek Aces, unique Seeks in this pack also, including one that is probably Pilot Skill 1, according to our enhanced tools.
Right.
So they're all unique, or I guess they're all unique.
Yeah, there are 4 uniques. It actually says it in the article.
Okay. obviously didn't read the whole thing.
So yeah, because some people were wondering how cheap that PS1 guy is. Because if a PS2 is 14 points, how cheap is a PS1? And they were wondering if it was going to be a new generic. If it is unique, you can only take one of it. And even if it's less than 14, how cheap is this ship going to be? I mean, potentially like a 10-point cost ship. But then again, if they have a special ability that's good enough, it might keep it at 14 points.
Maybe it's 20 points.
I have to admit, Leighton, the guy who gets a free evade if he gets shot at, I'm tempted to like make a light seek version of him just to throw it out there, just to see, you know? Just
to be annoying.
Yeah, it could be interesting. I don't. Do you attack him? Do you not attack him? I don't know.
Well, I think you would not attack him. He's not going to do a lot of damage.
Which actually works in his favor. Yeah. So that actually works okay for me.
Sure.
Yeah. All right. So I really want to see who those other Seeks are. And I think Leighton, if he had an EPT, he would have been the fix for TLTs. You would have seen him everywhere. Even if the Seek overall was kind of overcosted, I think Leighton with an EPT would have been someone on the table. But without an EPT, he was relegated to never be used. Except by people like...
I think certainly it pushed him over any edge there was to not being used. Not having that EPT did not help him out at all.
Yeah. So I think that might conclude our first Sunday morning edition of the Shuttle Tydirium Podcast, the mothership of Casual X-Wing, where we make the mistakes for you.
I think you already screwed that one up. I think it was a completely different motto at the beginning of this episode than it was at the end.
Yeah, I think it was we make the mistakes so you don't have to.
Yeah. So see, that's how good we are.
All right.
I just want to be consistent.
I'm just living up to my motto here, guys. Excellent. All right, so I think that's a good wrap. We can get this out to the Ewoks to edit and watch over them with J-Bot Ken to make sure they don't make mistakes.
All right, cool.
Brave New World. I'll talk to you guys soon. Have a good week, everybody.